What if the greatest insight into how we learn, fear, love, and react wasn't the result of a brilliant psychological experiment, but a simple observation in a physiology lab, noticed because some dogs started drooling at the wrong time? Imagine a scientist meticulously studying digestion, only to have his subjects reveal something far deeper about the human mind. That accidental discovery didn't just change psychology, it reshaped how we understand behavior, advertising, therapy, and even our everyday habits. Welcome to Story Behind the Theory, the channel where we uncover the fascinating stories behind the theories, discoveries, experiments, and ideas that changed our world. Today, we explore how one Russian physiologist and his dogs accidentally laid the foundation for modern psychology. To truly appreciate this breakthrough, we must travel back to late 19th century Russia. The world was on the cusp of massive change. Science was advancing rapidly, but the study of the mind was still dominated by philosophy and introspection. Psychology as a rigorous experimental science was in its infancy. Meanwhile, millions suffered from unexplained fears, addictions, and behaviors that no one could properly explain or treat. Enter Ivan Petrovich Pavlov. Born in 1849 in a small Russian village, Pavlov was the son of a priest and initially trained for the church. But his curiosity about the natural world pulled him toward science. He became a brilliant physiologist, driven by a passion for understanding the body's inner workings with precision and objectivity. By the 1890s, he was deeply immersed in studying the digestive system, particularly in dogs, animals chosen for their size, temperament, and similarity to human physiology. Pavlov's lab in St. Petersburg was a hub of meticulous research. He performed delicate surgeries on dogs, creating fistulas, external openings, to measure saliva and gastric juices without harming the animals too severely during observation. His goal was purely physiological, to map out how the digestive glands worked in response to food. In 1904, this work earned him the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. But the real revolution was about to come from something he initially saw as an annoying distraction. The story begins in the midst of these digestion experiments. Pavlov and his team noticed something peculiar. The dogs didn't just salivate when food was placed in their mouths, the unconditioned response everyone expected. They began salivating at the mere sight of the lab assistants who fed them, or even at the sound of their footsteps approaching the room. What should have been a neutral event had somehow become a trigger. Pavlov called these psychic secretions. He was intrigued, but at first, he viewed them as interference to his main work on digestion. Rather than ignoring the phenomenon, Pavlov's scientific rigor kicked in. He decided to investigate it systematically. This is where the famous experiments took shape, not as a grand plan to study learning, but as a careful follow-up to an accidental observation. In controlled setups, Pavlov presented a neutral stimulus, such as the sound of a metronome, a buzzer, a light, or a whistle. Popular accounts often simplify this to a bell, but he used various precise tools just before giving the dogs food. At first, the sound or light produced no salivation, but after repeated pairings with the food, the dogs began to salivate at the neutral stimulus alone. The once neutral cue had become a conditioned stimulus, triggering a conditioned response. Pavlov meticulously documented the process: acquisition, how the association formed; extinction, what happened when the stimulus was presented without food; and even spontaneous recovery. He explored how different stimuli worked and how timing mattered. His team conducted thousands of trials across many dogs, building a robust body of evidence. This wasn't just about dogs drooling. Pavlov realized he had uncovered a fundamental mechanism of nervous system function, how organisms learn to adapt to their environment through association. He called it the conditional reflex, emphasizing that these responses were learned under specific conditions. The English term conditioned came from a common mistranslation. The birth of classical conditioning, as it became known, was revolutionary. It showed that much of behavior wasn't fixed or purely instinctive but could be shaped by environmental associations. Initially, reactions in the scientific community were mixed. Some saw it as reducing complex psychology to simple reflexes, while others recognized its profound potential. Pavlov himself remained a physiologist at heart, using these findings to explore higher brain functions, personality types in dogs, and even what we might call emotions or temperament. The impact on the world was immense and continues today. Classical conditioning became a cornerstone of behaviorism, influencing giants like John B. Watson, who famously applied it in the Little Albert experiment. It transformed psychology from a philosophical pursuit into an experimental science focused on observable behavior. In medicine and therapy, it revolutionized treatment. Exposure therapy for phobias, systematic desensitization, and techniques used in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, all trace their roots here. It helps explain how post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, develops through powerful associations with trauma cues, and how those associations can be unlearned. Beyond the clinic, classical conditioning shapes our daily lives. Advertisers pair products with attractive images or music to create positive feelings. It explains why certain songs evoke strong emotions, why we might feel hungry at the sight of a fast food logo, or even how fears and prejudices can form. It influenced education, animal training, and our understanding of addiction. Even today, while psychology has evolved with cognitive and neuroscience perspectives, Pavlov's principles remain foundational and widely accepted, though refined and integrated with other theories. Here are some fascinating lesser-known facts that most people don't know about Pavlov and his work. First, Pavlov didn't primarily use a bell. He favored precise instruments like metronomes and buzzers because they could be accurately controlled and measured. The bell image became popular later through simplifications and mistranslations. Second, he financed part of his laboratory by selling canine gastric juice collected from his dogs as a supposed remedy for human indigestion, a quirky side business in pre-revolutionary Russia. Third, Pavlov strongly believed in the individuality and personality of his dogs. He identified different temperaments among them and saw conditioning as a tool to understand the mind, not just mechanical reflexes, views that contrasted with the strict behaviorists who later popularized his work. Fourth, during the Russian Revolution and its aftermath, Pavlov faced significant hardships, including food shortages and political pressure, yet he continued his research with remarkable dedication, even growing vegetables in the lab to survive. And fifth, while often portrayed as purely mechanistic, Pavlov actually believed in free will and the complexity of human consciousness, seeing conditioning as one layer of a much richer mental life. As we reflect on this story in our modern world of algorithms that condition our attention, therapies that heal through reassociation, and a deeper appreciation for the interplay of nature and nurture, Pavlov's dogs remind us of something profound. The smallest, most accidental observations, a dog drooling at a lab coat, can unlock universal truths about who we are and how we learn. This accident didn't just change psychology. It gave us tools to understand and improve the human condition, showing that even in the most controlled lab settings, curiosity and careful attention to the unexpected can rewrite our understanding of the mind. If you enjoyed this journey into the story behind this theory, don't forget to subscribe to Story Behind the Theory for more fascinating stories from science, psychology, history, and human discovery. And now we'd love to hear from you. Which theory, discovery, experiment, or mystery should we explore next? Share your suggestions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.